Welcome to the Really Know Your Customer podcast with your hosts, Betsy Westhafer and Tony Bodoh. Join Betsy and Tony as they dive in with highly successful C-suite leaders who have grown successful organizations by creating a laser focus on listening to their customers and building deep customer relationships. Now, it's time to join Betsy and Tony for the Really Know Your Customer show.
Hi, and welcome to the Really Know Your Customer podcast. My name is Tony Bodoh. I'm CEO of Tony Bodoh International and the co-author of the best-selling book, Profitability.
Hey, Tony, this is Betsy Westhafer. I am the CEO of the Congruity Group. We are a consulting firm that helps clients with customer advisory boards. And I am also the co-author of the #1 bestseller, Profitability, along with Tony. How are you today, Tony?
I am doing great. I am really looking forward to this interview.
Yeah, absolutely. We covered a lot of great ground when we talked to Kristy Knichel of Conditional Logistics. She's an extraordinary leader, and that came out in the interview. If you are listening to this podcast and are a leader, this is definitely one you don't want to miss. She has some really great insights, particularly as it relates to coming through the challenges that we have faced during the pandemic. I found, Tony, that she is really a CEO who understands what it means to really know your customer. She talked about how important it is to listen to your customer and just continually ask, what is it we can do to help our customers grow? And very creative. You know, they are doing well, but she's not content just to sit back on that. They're always looking for innovative ways to help serve their customers. And she gives some of those examples in this interview. I think she also, by virtue of being someone who leads by listening, she does that with her team too, which I found extraordinary. She's really helping, or she really works to understand what are the challenges my team is having and how can I support that as well. She's not afraid to roll up her sleeves and dig in to be, locked in arms with her team.
Absolutely. And just to give you a little background as a listener, Kristy is the CEO of Conditional Logistics. It's a company that her father started up, and she's been there right from the start. She's worked with the company for as long as it's been going. She's been in the trucking industry or in the logistics industry for 24 years now. And in 2020, of all years, she was named Influential Woman in Trucking. And I think that's a pretty significant title to be given, especially for a woman in the industry that's always been predominantly male oriented and driven by men. The company itself is a small family company. Was started out very small with a few clients, and they've grown into a logistics powerhouse over the past 10 years. And as you go through this, you'll hear that their goal is to be a $250 million company in the next 3 to 5 years. And they are on track to do that. So they have been growing at a massive pace, and to be able to watch that growth and to listen to Kristy's path that she took and how they go about that has been really phenomenal. So I'm so glad we get to interview Kristy on this show.
Let's get to it, Tony. Hi, Kristy. It's great to have you here today. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Good. Well, Kristy, we've already given our audience a little bit of background into you and your position in your company, but can you just kind of fill in the blanks a little bit and tell us about your career path over the last 15 or so years?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually had come right out of college, was going to buy a pizza shop and didn't finish college actually. And asked my dad about buying this pizza shop. What do you think about that? And he thought that wasn't a great idea at the age of 19 because I wasn't going to make a lot of money. So he then said, why don't you come work for me? I really didn't know what he did completely. So I started to work for him when I was 19, back in 1997, I believe it was. And I came in at the bottom being an intermodal dispatcher and worked my way up through the company. Doing sales, pricing, HR, claims, traveling, our truckload brokerage, LTL. So every piece within my organization has been touched by me. So, and then became a owner of the business in 2009. And now I am actually the majority owner, and we are a woman-owned certified company. And I'm the president and CEO today.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, as you know, on this show, we really focus on customers. And so tell us about your typical customer and the relationship that you look to build with your customers.
Sure. We have customers of all shapes and sizes, from your very small customer up to a large customer. But I would say our general is your small, mid-sized type customer. We do ship a variety of different products or commodities, but we do a lot of food product. So, we like to give our customers special attention, be that different carrier out there for them, especially the smaller mid-sized customers that I feel need it. But we also have the larger ones that I explained earlier too, that we can also kind of pivot and be more flexible with than maybe say some of our larger competitors. So, we'd like to be able to make sure the customer can get somebody on the phone with us and talk to a human when they need us and be able to give them solutions, or just talk through all the issues that are going on right now in the industry in particular.
Well, speaking of issues, what are some of the typical problems that you're able to solve for your customers?
I would say solutions on their transportation needs. So if they're not getting their freight picked up in a certain area, due to a provider that maybe just can't haul it, or maybe the pricing went up, situations like that where we can look at other options for them and give them, numerous different ways to ship it potentially. We had a customer years ago that couldn't move product from Texas to Florida via trucks because the pricing was just so high. But we were able to come up with a barge option to ship basically from Texas over to Florida, offload it, transload it, and it was actually a cheaper option, but it was a solution that you might not think about doing actually.
So it sounds like you really work to be that creative partner for your customers and always be innovating and looking for ways to do things differently in their best interest. So is that something you've woven into your culture intentionally? Talk to us a little bit about customer-facing culture of your company.
Yeah, so we started off the company with customers that my father had previous to opening the business for, maybe 10 plus years. And as of today, 24 years later, we still have a lot of these same customers that have been on board with us, and we've grown with these customers and actually grown into other modes of shipping due to their needs. It's actually made the company open up these other modes of shipping like the LTL and the truckload side to service those customers. And the same token, we've also had employees that have been with us since the inception of the company as well, and that have been here 15 plus years. I have a woman that started back when I did, probably a year after I started. So she's been here about 23 years. But we have a good bit of people here, about 15 years, in that 8 to even 12 range as well. So I think that goes hand in hand with taking care of the customers. You have those same people that have been here for a long time dealing with the same customers. They've grown with the business. They understand it. So I think that that's something that was extremely important about our business. Taking care of our people then takes care of our customers so they stay, especially in a business where there's high turnover with employees, and we really don't have that within our company. So it's been, a blessing. And, at the end of the day, it's all taking care of the customer.
Kristy, talk us through some of the areas of growth that you've seen, because I know that, as you mentioned, the company has really changed since you've come on board, and you're growing in particular areas right now that may not be expected because your company is different than most of the other transportation companies out there.
Yeah, so we are heavy focused on the intermodal. 80% of our revenue is shipping on the rail side of things. So that's what we did initially when we opened the business. That was all we did. And then as we started to grow, we brought on some salespeople. We were able to then go out to those customers and offer LTL services because it was a need, and we knew we had to continue to grow. And they had truck business. We were able to open up a truck division as well and start to grow that as, for those same customer base, and then bring on additional customers as well. The LTL down the road, more from when we opened up, I would say about 5 years ago, we partnered with a company called Bluegrass Logistics for a strategic reason. They're about a $450 million company with an LTL spend. So we were able to basically use their pricing direct with carriers. Obviously, there's a fee involved, but it made us so much more competitive. We were able to grow that business probably 10 times the size that it was today. So that has really helped the company significantly grow. And then on top of that, we also have an agent program that we probably rolled out a few years ago. We've had some throughout the years, like sales agents that bring in opportunities, and our staff then operates it. We have some operating offices now. We have, I want to say roughly altogether 30 agents on the books. And that is a really big piece to our growing strategy, even going forward, is to continue to grow that out and make that even a bigger piece of the pie here at Knichel. And another thing we did as well back in 2012 was buy a local truck brokerage company to also bring on their revenue to help beef that area up. So those are, I would say, the biggest things that we have grown here at Knichel since our inception. And then we also have plans to continue to grow down the road and expand upon that.
So one follow-up question to that. So when you're listening to your customers, how do you know it's time for you to start looking at growing a new division or a new part of your company?
So I would say, because when you're entrenched with a customer doing so much business with them and they want to give you more business doing something that, say, we don't typically do, that's something I want to be able to do, because I don't want them to take the business somewhere else to a company that can. So obviously that's a big piece of us making those decisions. And I also just feel so many companies out there do offer all those different things. We do have strategic partners that we use for, say, international, because we don't do that, or air freight, for example. But down the road, I want to be able to have that piece as our own. So you're like that one-stop shop and be able to offer those services. Right now, we probably could get a lot more business for international just from our current customer base. So that's something that, we are listening to our customers, having those conversations. And if they're wanting us to do it, and I want to be able to have those services to grow the company, then that's what's going to make us do that going forward.
So, Kristy, we know that the last 14 months during the pandemic has been a really tough time, particularly with supply chain. So talk to us about how you've been able to weather all of the challenges that the pandemic brought and where things stand now as we start to emerge from this, and just kind of walk us through what that's looked like for you.
Sure. So initially, it looked like maybe it wasn't something that was going to be too long of an issue that turned into now it's been a year that our people have been working from home. So the first thing obviously was getting everybody working from home, and then being able to have connectivity, better ways to have conversations with everybody working from home and not being in the office, adding technology to it, whether it's the Zoom, additional meetings, those type of things initially. Especially to stay in touch with the customers and try to be as proactive as possible with all the different issues that have come up. Some of the challenges, even specifically this year, I think when this year started, we thought we're maybe going to go away and it wasn't going to be as difficult going into this year, but then the weather hit. And when the weather hit, it pretty much shut the rails down for a few days. And in some cases, it could take a month or 2 months to even kind of recoup or get things moving again. So that really was especially challenging for our team. The constant rescheduling of appointments, whether it's picking up, delivering, freight not being there on time at all, and just training our people to try to be in front of the customers, knowing that they're not going to want to hear what you have to say, but we're giving you the information and trying to do the best that we can with it. I actually had to take an approach where I started making a list and calling customers myself direct, and making sure that, hey, I'm here, I'm working on these issues. I contact the rails, I'm in contact with them on a daily basis. Also our carriers, I'm talking to owners at specific carriers that we're using, making sure that everybody's on the same page, that we're all communicating the best we can, because I would say that's probably been the biggest challenge for probably any company in this situation, is really the communication between everyone when you used to sit next to each other in the office and you can hear what's going on and kind of see what's going on. So that's definitely been a challenge for us, but I definitely think it's gotten a lot better. But we're actually talking about coming back to work in May and starting like a slow process of getting the people back in, because we do think from the operations side, there's stuff that's just being missed, that when they're here more as a team, it's going to be better overall for our customers. And that's just something that we see that's going to be a benefit to everybody. So, again, the challenges that we have seen the past, I would say, year now is unlike anything I've ever experienced in this business. And I think it's just taught us all to make sure we reach out. And obviously with my network and the people I know, me making some phone calls and doing those talks really, do help. And I think it took a while too for our customers to really understand, like, is this just your company or is it this company? All of their suppliers, or, no matter what end it was coming from, or other competitors of ours, they're all having issues in different areas. Some can help better in other areas than others can. We all have niches in different areas where we might have more inbound or outbound to help certain customers. So if we're not having those conversations with them, you don't know what you can actually do to help them even more. But I will say, by having the conversations with the customers, they were very appreciative that I did reach out. Definitely understood the situation, because they're dealing with it from all ends. I think the good thing about it is we're communicating a lot more than we ever have. And you're definitely getting conversation from potential customers that maybe wouldn't have talked to you because they didn't need you a couple years ago. So at least building new relationships, tightening the relationships that we do have, and then just trying to find solutions, whatever that might be, shipping different modes and finding different ways to get the job done.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've observed is, as hard as this time has been, there have been some good things that have come from it. And just the idea that you have to proactively communicate with your customers, and whether or not it's technically part of your job description or not, that's a good thing to come out of this chaos that was thrust upon us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I say, with the sales team, there's definitely a lot of issues for them where, especially if you're coming out of California, right? That market is so bad right now. I mean, you can't even onboard new business. The railroad's making all kinds of changes there as well. And to tell a sales guy that lives out in California, you can't really sell outbound California right now because of the situation, makes it difficult. But in the same token, hey, there's a ton of customers calling in, and there's a ton of potential customers that maybe we can't even help right now. But start building those relationships so that maybe down the road when things change, at least you have that relationship now, because that's the most important thing. And I can tell you, years ago, most of these people wouldn't even pick up the phone or answer because they didn't need, to talk to anybody else. So, and you never know, again, they might have other business in other areas of the country. We're struggling in certain specific areas like LA, Chicago, but in the same token, we're picking up business in other areas too. I think the biggest struggle for me is not being able to help our incumbent customers that we've had for a long time as much as we could. So that to me is the most important thing as well, is making sure we take care of those customers first. And then anything that we can do extra, coming out of those specific markets would be after the fact.
So coming out of the pandemic here, as we approach the end of it, who knows exactly how long it'll be, but what do you see are some of the strengths that your company's developed in this process? I mean, you mentioned proactive communication is definitely up. What do you think you want to take with you that your customers have really responded well to into kind of the new era, the post-pandemic era?
I would say just, again, it's the proactive communication. It's letting them know what's going on in the industry even. So for example, when you can't get capacity for a customer last week that we were supposedly able to through a door-to-door product, thought we were going to pick up their shipments and then we're told we couldn't pick them up, then explaining to the customer, well, this is really what's going on in Chicago. This is what's going on with the rails. This is what's causing the situation. And I think a lot of companies like myself aren't necessarily putting that information out there on a consistent basis, that, it's not just that the carrier doesn't have a box and can't do it today. this is an issue that's going to be 2 to 3 months long because the contractor at the ramp isn't doing the job and they're replacing the contractor. It's really letting them know what's going on industry wide in specific markets, especially where they're shipping out of, because I think a lot of these customers just don't even understand that. They just expect things to just move and be okay. And, and I think just educating the customers as much as we can and giving them options, truly being that resource for them to, what else can we do? Can we ship it in a box car? You can get 4 shipments for the price of 3 in there. If we can get that moving, if you can wait a month for your product to get there, just different ways to interact. And I have my team working with a consultant to really hone in on those skills for them, the customer service skills, and picking up that phone and trying to talk more than the email, because I think that's been another struggle we had in trying to force that, because I do think being in front of the customers, being on the phone with them, educating them, I think has been huge for us.
Kristy, do you find that the customers are really embracing that education and that it helps the overall relationship because they do see that, okay, this is a global problem and I have this one partner who's trying to help me navigate the whole thing? How does that evolve in terms of deepening those relationships?
I think that it does for a good bit of them, probably not everyone. But I think the fact that we're sharing information that they can then go to their bosses and talk about why they're having these issues, because sometimes it's just get it done. They don't understand why it's not getting done. I think that that's huge. Throwing data at them. For example, one of our largest customers that we've had since the company's been around and prior, they're out of LA, and we were having issues getting enough equipment for them. And part of that is the rail was not having, as much capacity they could give us. So if we didn't have it ourselves, we couldn't pick it up. And explaining to them, the main contact, here's the data for each of your locations. She was just getting phone calls saying we weren't picking up freight for certain customers. But then when I sent her what we were doing, then it was like, oh, okay, now I see. And then she went back and asked me, after we addressed the issue and was able to actually get more capacity for them, she wanted another sheet that showed the improvement by location. So we ended up sending that on, and she was just very thrilled to be able to share that then with her team to say, hey, I want to manage it here. I want to use Knichel. Obviously, we had a couple weeks that were not great, but that was also when the UP shut down for 3 days. Beyond our control, something that's going to take a while to recoup from, but we did have a significant improvement several weeks later. And that's stuff that then helps her and her management team, and it makes us look good because we finally, addressed the issue.
It reminds me a lot of, we interviewed Joe Lynch, I think, in the beginning of the pandemic last year. And he was talking about how a lot of the trucking companies he's consulted for are very much just send me a report, just send me a report, but they don't have that personal relationship to really understand what the data actually means. And, what I'm hearing from you is really, it's not just about sending data. It's about putting the story, the narrative around that. What does it actually mean to you? And then once they understand that, then they can request, okay, I need to know even more. And I love the fact that you can show the improvement. Yeah, we may have had a bad week or a bad few weeks here, but now we're showing improvement. That type of communication is just so essential. And I think a number of the interviews we've done, the CEOs say the same thing again and again. It's about showing improvement, especially in these times of pandemic. One of the things that really strikes me, I know you're delivering on a large scale. You're working with box cars and that, but how in your world, how has it really affected you now that, retail stores have been closed for so long? And it's like the retail experience is now the box that lands on my doorstep. How has that really affected what you're doing?
So I would say initially the UPS, the Amazon, the FedEx, during this whole pandemic, e-commerce went booming. I mean, it was already coming, but it was then just fast forward. So those are the customers' premium service that actually they were getting a lot of the capacity that was out there, paying that premium price to get that equipment. So that affected us, I would just say, in a way of not being able to get the capacity that we might have been able to because of how many people were shipping to their home or the e-commerce situation in general. But I don't think it's taken anything away from us as far as shipping we do a lot of to DCs and warehouses. Even though there's not, say, those stores everywhere for certain companies, you're still shipping products to warehouses where they're going to be held in different markets and areas for when someone does order that, then it's going to come out of that warehouse and ship to that, residence or whatnot. So, I would say it hasn't affected us in a way that maybe most people would think, shutting down stores. We didn't do a lot of retail per se, like clothing, that type of stuff. But, again, people are still buying that stuff. It's just going to a different warehouse or holding facility instead of like an actual store itself. But yeah, I mean, there's, like I said, those were the two ways I would say that it's affected our business, just because that's going to continue to grow, the e-commerce, and get even bigger. And that there's still going to be space for us there 10 years from now. I don't know how that's going to look with, I think Walmart has their own, fleet now on the rail, and, Amazon already has, their boxes, and they're trying to buy every piece of it, whether it's the barge, the ship, the plane, all of that stuff. But at some, point, I don't know if they'll need additional companies to help them get all their stuff delivered or not. So we keep an eye on that and see how that goes. But I still think there's going to be a lot of demand there and a lot of need for all the different shipping that we still do.
Kristy, shifting gears just a minute, when we had the opportunity to chat with you prior to this, and something that you said really got our attention, and that was about surrounding yourself with people that are smarter than you. So talk to us a little bit about what you meant by that.
Yeah, absolutely. I had hired in John Kristek, our current COO. He's been here roughly 15 years. He started in the pricing department, moved up into intermodal, then was running all of operations. And I remember when I wanted to promote him to COO, I believe he was 34 years old. And my dad thought I was crazy because he was so young. He had the college degree, I didn't. And I said to my dad, I don't care what age he is. He's like the smartest guy I ever met. And he knows a lot more stuff than I do. He's a data guy. I'm not. So he's definitely been, I would say, my best hire here. And understanding that, I think the hard thing for me was thinking I had to know it all. And there's no way that I'm going to know it all. So that's probably been my single most important thing, was hiring those, the smarter people in. And we have a couple more here as well. Ashley, my marketing girl, she also is like a second hand to me, very smart, very fast, witty, helps me with a lot of my stuff that we put out there. And she's been another huge, huge benefit to me as well. So I think that's the most important thing you can do. You hire in people that are smarter than you, because I know there's things that I want to do, but sometimes John's like, let's look at it this way, and then it's like, oh, you know what, you're right. Like I never would have even thought about that. So it's just bringing a different perspective too that I just can't even think about. So we make a really good team together, and it's how you grow your business. You let the smarter people continue to do the things you just can't do, and I'm okay with that.
Well, Kristy, what's on the horizon for Knichel?
We have a lot on the horizon here, constantly looking at, upgrading technology and what new technology is out there to scale the business, to continue to grow the business. Obviously, I love giving people jobs, but sometimes there's just things that can be done technology-wise that make the job a lot faster. So that's something that we're continuously looking into. We're looking into really building out and growing our agent program, which we've done some things already this year, but going to be doing full force here in a few months. Really changing and growing out our truck brokerage. That really needs to grow and grow at a faster rate. We hired a senior director of operations that started back in September, and he's a big part of that, working with our team, trying to put everything together, what we need to do, and continue to just piece things together, because I have a plan to eventually hit $250 million in the next 3 to 5 years. And I'm pretty positive I think that we can do that. And even if we throw in, possibly acquiring some other businesses at some point for the strategic ones I talked about, whether it's freight forwarding, international, air freight, those type of things. I wouldn't want to recreate that wheel, but that's another option that's in our plan that we're discussing. So we definitely have big plans to continue to grow, and we're doing a lot of stuff and keeping busy. So I'm excited for it.
Well, you've given us a lot to really think about here. And I mean, the couple of things that come to mind are this idea of where you're growing. And obviously you've been listening to your customer. You really know what they want. And that's what's driving the acquisition. That's what's driving the growth of the different brokers and partners that you're bringing into the mix. What would you say, if you were to summarize it, what would you say the most important thing in this whole element of really knowing your customer has been for your company?
I just think listening to them. What is your pain points? What can we do to help them grow? We talked to a recent customer that we're trying to get on as a customer, and, finding out that maybe they don't know a whole lot about the transportation side of things. So taking that and educating them, listening and giving them options, I think is the best thing. And like I said, always listening. I tell my people, let them talk, fill in when you can, but you got to hear what they have to say. And, we do take that back and we continue to grow. There's a lot of companies out there that just, they're happy where they're at. And I could say, yeah, I'm happy where I'm at, but I want to continue to do more and just keep going after, whatever we can. So.
Well, Kristy, one of the things we like to do on this show is to give our guests an opportunity to share about a nonprofit organization, an organization that you might be volunteering with or that is a partner to your organization. Is there anybody you want to give a shout out to with regard to that?
Yeah, so a big one that I've supported for a very long time is called the Heinz Ward Positive Athlete here in Pittsburgh. It is basically making or supporting, kids in high school and the lower grade school positivity in sports. No matter if you're the best or not the best, keeping that positivity there. And we give away a Title IX scholarship every year, which I also give to my high school as well, which is inclusion of women in sports and being fair and equal. So that's a big one for us. And another two, I'm just going to say real quick, is Dress for Success here in Pittsburgh is helping women for business. And another one is Strong Women, Strong Girls. And that is, women out there trying to mentor young girls and being involved in that. I do a lot of mentoring with a lot of women in different ways. So always giving back my knowledge and trying to help, because I felt like I didn't get a whole lot other than learning from my dad and some other, people along the way. But I want to give back as much as I can.
Well, Kristy, that's awesome. I know, being in the role you're in, leading this company, this growing company, it takes a lot of time and effort to do that well. But to take that time out, carve it out to mentor these young women, hats off to you for that. That's really an example that we can all learn from.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Tony, you have any other questions for Kristy?
No, this has been great. I think, what she told us just there at the end about really listening to the customers, what's sitting with me right now. And I can't wait to kind of do our wrap up with this and talk about some of the takeaways I've got.
Okay, great. Well, Kristy, thank you so much for your time. We so appreciate having you a guest on the show. This has been a great conversation. I know our audience is going to get a lot of great nuggets of information to take from this. So thanks so much, and best of luck moving forward as we come into brighter days for the country.
Right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks.
Wow, Betsy, I really love this interview with Kristy. I think the thing that really stands out is she was going to the end of the interview and she talked about the key thing is listening to the customer. And then she had this particular phrase, and I wrote it down: how can we help them grow? And I think if there's anything that we've heard consistently from CEOs, that the successful companies out there are those, especially in the last year or so, they're the companies that have been listening to their customers and asking that very question: how can we help you grow? They're focused on the other company, even if it's not specifically in an area that they are experts in, but they know if they help the company grow, they're going to grow.
Yeah. And, she's such an example of a CEO who is engaged, not just at the high level, but when push comes to shove, rolling her sleeves up, making phone calls at, the level that she needs to be at the time, and supporting her team, educating her team on how to be out in front of the clients. I just think from a leadership standpoint, it just speaks volumes about the way Kristy runs her company, and how, much of the way she shows up every day is, a direct result to the success that they're achieving.
Yeah, she's got her finger on the pulse of both the customer and the employees. And I think it was interesting. A couple other things, you just mentioned one of them. She, in this pandemic, has been, on the floor, if you will, right there with her customers, with her employees. And she's recognized that they need some extra training. So they brought in this consultant to train them on certain customer service skills, getting on the phone. For me, when you see a company in a recession, in a pandemic like this, willing to invest in training, that's a really good sign, because those are the companies statistics show that are going to grow after the recession or the situation is over, the crisis ends, because they've leapfrogged their abilities in the past, and their competitors who didn't invest in the same types of things, they're not going to keep up.
Right. And, the thought that the one comment she made about, yeah, we're content where we are, but we want to keep going. It's not about, okay, we're doing okay. Let's just keep doing what we're doing. We're doing okay, but what else can we do? And how can we be better for our customers? How can we grow this company? Looking at strategic partnerships to be able to do that, so they're not recreating the wheel. I just think she's a phenomenal leader. I do follow her on LinkedIn. They have won an extraordinary amount of awards recently. It's very exciting. And I think it's definitely a company that our listeners are going to want to follow.
Absolutely. It may not be the industry you're in, but it's definitely a place to look and to pay attention to, because you can learn so much from Kristy.
Absolutely. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in again to the Really Know Your Customer podcast. We look forward to seeing you next time. See you soon, Tony.
See you soon, Betsy.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Really Know Your Customer. We hope you gained a lot of value from being here today. If you want to learn more about the work Betsy and Tony do to help their clients thrive, visit Betsy at thecongruitygroup.com and Tony at tonybodoh.com. See you next time on the Really Know Your Customer show.